pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as we get ready to get started, before we do, I just want to take a second. I don't know how many years ago it's been now, but the past board president, Claude Bray, passed away this past week, so I just kind of want to observe a moment of silence for him. Thank you.
And his picture is actually on the second frame from the left, the two ones right in the middle. So,
Right. Yeah. Take a look at that after the meeting if you'd like. So, future board meetings, September 28th here, October 12th here, and November 9th here at 6 o'clock. We do have a couple of revisions, but that's mostly just under what will be human resources. And also, I guess, a new item under new business. We'll skip right to public recognition. We have a recommendation to approve a $1,500 donation from an anonymous donor for Southwood softball. And we have a recommendation to approve a donation of hand sanitizer from Poet.
I move to accept the donations.
Sure.
Motion and second to approve the donations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? School recognition, Mr. Keyfaber.
all right, we'll start with Mrs. Moore, and then I have several from both Northfield and Southwood, and we also have, I guess, some from Sharp Creek. So I'll go Mrs. Moore and Mr. Martin.
Sure, I just have two, maybe three, if I can add one. Is that all right?
Yeah, just have that quickly so we put
It will be quick.
Okay.
I just want to thank our support staff. Without our support staff, they're kind of like the backbone of our building. They jump in whenever we need something done, lots of times before we even know we need something done. And certainly the beginning of the year is an all hands on deck kind of moment in a pre-K to grade 2 building. So they're just incredibly appreciated. They definitely show a lot of patience and flexibility because they, come in every day expecting that they're going to do this, and sometimes they get to do that. So they're just greatly appreciated. And then I also want to share that last Thursday afternoon, we had our visit from the CCDF for our preschool licensing, and that was very successful. We have 17 staff members that work with our preschoolers at some point during the day, which means they are initiated into this wonderful club where they get to be, fingerprinted and drug screened and let's see what else. It's like the list goes through 12 hours of professional development, just extra stuff that is a requirement for us to have that licensing. So they are very much appreciated for going the extra mile and to make sure we have all those ducks in a row when we have our surprise visit from our licensing person. And then the last thing that I'd like to add is just an appreciation for our local DCS this week. I think your day is tomorrow, isn't it? Today. We have Sergeant Terry Hall with us, just meeting with our students, and we wouldn't have that without our local DCS being there and supporting and driving that, having them here. So we all have our body safety talk, so our kids know what to do in any sort of situation. So,
Before you go on though, I didn't mean you had to rush through that, but just when you put it on here, so when we send it to our media.
I will add it.
Yeah. You didn't need to rush through anything else. So. And I had the opportunity to be able to go to, I actually went to Northfield and to Metro North to hear Terry Hall again. And he does a great job as far as being able to change his demeanor and talk from when he talks to the younger students to when he talks to the high school students. And it's very, very good. And so it's very, very important. And so we are glad that they're still able to do that. Last year was one of the first years in a long time that we did not do that because of COVID. All right, Mr. Martin.
Thank you. I'd like to celebrate, we at Sharp Creek would like to celebrate Mr. Vernon Millett and Mr. Howard Goshert, who are our custodial staff. We had lots of teachers and staff moving areas of the building. We brought over 3 Metro North. And along with those two gentlemen and other staff that Steve Holly lined up, just fantastic job of working hard through the summer to make sure day one of school we were all ready. And then these few weeks we've been going, those two especially have done a nice job. Also a big thank you to Mrs. Allison Rosemeyer, who's doing a great job in her first year as our building secretary / bookkeeper. It's very obvious to me each day that she's growing in her confidence as well as her knowledge and abilities in the position. She handles students, staff, and parents in a very positive way, and we really appreciate having her on our team. And another new staff member, Mrs. Sarah Aderman, also want to celebrate her, who is in her first year as our library aide. She's doing a wonderful job. That's a position that has varied roles from responsibilities from day to day, and she is learning quickly and has a great desire to learn quickly each and every one of those, and she works well with students, and it's clear that she has a genuine heart to do well for them. So I want to celebrate those 4 support staff.
Thank you. And I have several that I would like to read to you, and these are very good. So first of all, we'll go with Southwood. So from Mr. McDaniel, a special thank you to the custodial maintenance staff for preparing the building for the school year. Actually, that's the one that was on 4/20/24. I'm sorry. You already read that one. Southwood High School is pleased to report that Caden Prickett, a Southwood graduate of the class of 2021, enlisted in the Marine Corps and just recently successfully completed the Crucible. Crucible is a 54-hour straight training exercise that validates the physical, mental, and moral training they have endured thus far. We are very proud of you, Caden. Way to go. 54 hours. Also, this is kind of a connected one. The parent of a Southwood graduate reported that her son recently took part in an exercise that helped transport and welcome American citizens and refugees from Afghanistan to the undisclosed military base. The parent wanted to remain anonymous, but we wanted to recognize that as a Southwood graduate who is also a member of the armed forces, was part of the effort to get American citizens and others out of Afghanistan. And of course, have to remember the military person that was actually killed that is from locally here in Miami County. So thank you for all that. Continuing on from Southwood High School would also like to thank the River Defenders and all others involved groups to make the River Wild field trip a huge success. I don't know if you guys have ever had children that have gone through that yet, but I guess it's just been the last 2 years we've done that, but it's really a great experience. You get to learn about the river, learn about respect and different things like that as far as our environments. Also from Southwood High School received an exemplary behavior report from the IHSAA. This document was written regarding the 827 varsity football game against Oak Hill. The report reads outstanding sportsmanship from Southwood players and coaches throughout the entire game. And then going on from Mr. Snyder at Northfield, a big thank you to the Wabash Defenders also, first responders and all the parents and volunteers that helped make the 7th grade trip down the Wabash River a possibility. Special thank you to science teacher Ryan McFarland, who also really plans the fine details for Northfield. It's quite a bit of time to get all the proper paperwork and all completed to take 97th graders on a trip like this. Thank you. Also, our cross-country team hosted the Norse Invite Back on Saturday, August 28th at the Field of Dreams. The Northfield Lady Norse cross-country placed first at the Norse Invite. Madeline Moore, Mrs. Moore's daughter, led the team with an 8th place finish in time of 24:29. Coming in 10th place was Trinity Beaver at 25:23. 12th place was, is it Mara Zolman? Mara Zolman, in a time of 25:53. Rounding out our Lady Norse was Ella Dahl in 16th place. Anna Kissel in 17th, Asia Miller in 24th, Natalie Keller in 39th. We had a junior high boy, Talon Barlow, won the boys junior high race at the Invite, and the junior high boys team finished second. At the North Invite in the second meet in a row, Lenny Hopper and Kay Bryce finished first and second to lead the Lady Norse to victory. All 6 girls ran season best times in a beautiful sunny morning. Tegan Bear finished 5th, Allie Copeland finished 11th, and Mara Bowers, improving her lifetime best by 1:22, finished 16th. Kiara Oswalt ran her first ever race to put her first time into the books. Good information there. Also for Northfield Girls Golf has had a great season so far. They have completed a record of 28-5. They were 5th place at Huntington North Invite out of 12 teams. Alex Cartwright and Ainsley Dale were in the top 10. They were Manchester Invite champions and Wabash Invite champions. Alex Cartwright was the meet champion, and Ainsley Dale 3rd overall. We wish Coach McClure and players all the best as they begin sectional play. It's amazing how sectionals coming up that quickly. This is from Northfield and Southwood, and this is about the game on Friday night, last Friday night. Official John Flanagan gave the IHSAA exemplary behavior report to both Southwood and Northfield after the football game at Southwood on Friday night. John Flanagan said, "My crew and I had the pleasure of officiating the Northfield and Southwood football game this evening. Going in, we knew this was a huge rivalry game that is often very close. Tonight was just that. But what really impressed me was the culture of the sportsmanship that has been established at both schools. While the play on the field was exemplary and the sportsmanship evident, hard play followed by helping each other up and at times even congratulating one another on a good block or great play. What really stood out was the student sections. There was a set of bleachers located in the end zone. It filled up in about the second quarter. It took me a while to realize it, but these bleachers were filled with students from both schools, both cheering hard, both rooting loudly, but right next to each other during a close rivalry game. Not once did I hear anyone beyond the "you can't do that" chant. These students had a blast. The teams enjoyed them being there, and there was nothing even close to an incident. Imagine putting adults rooting for their respective teams in this situation. This is a credit to Tom Pinnacle administration at Southwood and Northfield administration, which have obviously established outstanding cultures of sportsmanship. Add to this the professional behavior and attitudes of both coaches, Dave Snyder and Brandon Baker, and this turned out to be one of those games that remind me of why my crew and I put in the time that we do the officials. Well done, Southwood. Well done, Northfield. That's really excellent right there. So, and I had an opportunity to take that picture. We put it on Facebook, and it was really cool to see the kids there rooting on, and like you said, they were both there. So, and then that was the short. I think I have them all. No, I don't. There's still some more. That's good. Okay, also from Southwood, then from Lindsay Nee, choir and band teacher at Southwood. After rehearsals and auditions, we had 2 Southwood High School choir students make the 2022 Indiana All-Star Honor Choir. Caitlin Rank and Lindsay Silvers will represent Southwood in January for a performance at the Indiana Music Educators Association Convention with 100 other high school students. This is Caitlin's 3rd year, Lindsay's 2nd year being a part of the ensemble. Only the top students in each assigned area were chosen to perform with this group, so it's exciting that we had 2 make it. And did I miss anything else? I don't think so. So thank you again for allowing me just to read those. It's always neat to see the successes. There's a lot of things going on, and we probably can do a lot more. We appreciate all the time spent into actually doing that. So, all right.
Okay, moving on to public comment for agenda items only.
The only comment we have is from Mitch Meyer, reminding or letting us know that the Wilbur Dawes Field and Lemming Track sign will be hung on Thursday afternoon by Scott Hopper, Tony Hoover, and myself. And if it's crooked, blame Scott. He didn't say that.
You really did say that.
Mitch probably.
All right. There's no other. We'll move on to the consent agenda items. Looking for approval of the minutes from our last regular board meeting on August 24th.
I moved to the minute. Second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes from our last regular board meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to financials, claims.
I have no motion to approve claims.
Second.
Motion and second to approve claims. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Payroll.
Nothing new on payroll.
I moved to accept payroll.
Second.
Motion and second to approve payroll. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Financial summary.
Gave you the end of the month statement, so that just shows the balances then at the end of August. Things look good. No surprises, so.
I move to approve
Payroll.
payroll.
Oh, payroll's already,
I already did that.
wake up.
It's financial summary.
No, we don't have to approve that.
Okay, so if there are no questions on that, then we will move to the 2022 budget hearing. We'll have to open it up, so I don't know if we want to just open it up
I
at
will
the end.
officially open up the budget hearing now.
Okay. So with that being said, we can go through this relatively easy or simply because we kind of went over all this information piecemeal throughout the last couple of months. And so this kind of puts it all together for 2022 and what we will submit to the DLGF after it's adopted at our next board meeting. So you can go ahead and click through it, Mike. So when we submit our budget, we cover the education, operations, debt service, and rainy day fund. Just as a reminder, I just kind of keep this in here, what the education fund is broken down to and what the operations fund is broken down to. So anything that is instructionally related falls under education. Anything that is operational beyond that falls under operations. So those two funds were established in 2019. And then I kind of put there that there is flexibility to transfer monies from one fund to the other. However, you cannot transfer more than 15% of your education fund revenues into operation fund throughout the year. So this is a breakdown of our overall budget for those funds. So when we're talking about estimates here, we're talking about appropriations. So these are dollars that we would like to spend, not necessarily dollars that we have. So these are appropriations. And so in education fund, 14.3 million, operations 8.9 million, debt service 2.8 million, and rainy day fund 900,000 for a total of $26.9 million budget for those funds. That just gives you a breakdown of how that compares. Most of our dollars are spent out of education fund. So our education fund is supported by state dollars. Those monies come from the state funding formula, the basic grant, which is all based off of ADM or enrollment. There are other sources, but our main source is the basic tuition support. So broke that down here as far as revenue estimates. We're estimating those breakdowns of revenue for our education fund, which equates to about $16 million, where about $2 million of that would be transferred into the operation fund. And you can see the majority of that, 92%, is coming from ADM. As far as expenses are concerned, most of our expenses out of that fund are in reference to salary and benefits. You can see that almost 92% of our expenses are spent on staffing. So that breaks down what our anticipated appropriation expenses would be. Kind of gives you a comparison of what the main ones are. So to kind of determine what our revenues are going to be, we have to use ADM and ADM history. And so that's just a little breakdown of where we were to where we're at as far as ADM is concerned. And then the dollars that we're receiving as far as the estimate is concerned is what we estimated back in the spring to determine what dollars we'd be getting from July to December. And then that would be fixed one way or the other based off what our actual ADM count is, which for the fall is the end of this week. So you can see a historically decline in enrollment for ADM purposes. This is a little bit more specific breakdown by building. where you can see in comparison each building a little bit. Obviously, that will change somewhat because we've had some grade levels shift over, but this is based off of last year's information. So money follows the student. That's how ADM works. State legislation increased the amount of money that was received per ADM. So we receive about $295 more per student for this coming year. But when you have declining enrollment, then obviously you're losing numbers there. So it's a balance to know what your actual revenue is going to be. So your basic tuition support is your ADM and your complexity. They use a very archaic, complicated formula to determine complexity, which is based off an index determined by the percentage of students who qualify for SNAP, TANF, and foster care. That is factored into that basic grant total. And then additional dollars that you may receive per student are honors grant. So students that graduate with an honors diploma can receive, the school can receive $1,100 to $1,500 per student, depending if they are, if they qualify for SNAP, TANF, or foster care. Then you can also receive CTE dollars, which they refer to as the vocational grant. And so those are work-related coursework. Majority of that's done at the Heartland Career Center, even though we do have some CTE course offerings at our local schools. And then depending on the high value, moderate value, low value determines the different dollar amounts that the school would receive based on that coursework. And then the last dollar amount you can receive is from special ed dollars. That's a count that they take once a year. And so whatever special ed students you have at that count point and their eligibility would determine what kind of special ed dollars you would receive for that. And so you can see those dollar amounts, and this is the first year that we've had an increase in a majority of those dollar amounts in a long time. Which is nice to see, and you can see that we do receive, now that we take on our 3-year-old and special ed students, we also receive 3-year-old and 4-year-old preschool dollars for any of those students that qualify for an IEP. So that kind of breakdown of the education fund. We look then at debt service and operations fund. Those are supported through local tax dollars. And then we look at our assessed valuation because that is what helps determine and set the tax rate based off the levy that's asked. Kind of went over this at the last board meeting. We can see what our assessed value has done over time. That we don't have to go to that. That just breaks down what we looked at last meeting. Debt service. So this is kind of, the red represents kind of some of the debt that we've had fall off over the past few years. The black is what we have remaining. So our budget for this year would be $2.8 million in debt service, which we only have $4.8 million remaining at the end of this year. So if you take that 4.8 minus the 2.8, then that's what we would have remaining after this budget. Operation fund, source of revenues, like I mentioned before, mostly it's going to come from tax dollars, local tax dollars. You can see that 70% of that is going to come from our local tax dollars. The remaining 28% or so is going to come from the transfer of monies from the education fund to operations fund. Then you have some other amounts that generate a little bit of revenue into the operation fund. That's a breakdown of the revenues in comparison to each other. And as far as expenses are concerned, most of our expenses, again, are going to be estimated in salaries and benefits. And then we have lots of other expenses related to operational things such as utilities, repairs and maintenance, professional services, improvements, property insurance, other types of insurance, automobile insurance, machinery, equipment, vehicle purchases, supplies, etc. And you can see a breakdown of that. I break it down in a couple different ways. That's a breakdown of kind of things I just went over. And then this is a breakdown by category, because I like to break things down and keep them kind of in a bucket to some degree. So you can see what our total expenses are in just the general administration, which is in marketing, how much is in technology, how much is in our maintenance and custodial staff, how much is in our transportation, etc. So that kind of breaks that all down for you there. And then the last fund is our rainy day fund, which is obviously something we just set aside for needs that don't come up all the time. We've used it for stipends, we've used it to cover retirement bridges that we may have established based off a contract, transferring into other funds that may need a little extra help, some of those type of things. Additional considerations, tax anticipation warrants are usually held if you run into cash flow issues. I don't foresee that to be an issue, so we haven't had to use a tax anticipated warrant for 4 or 5 years now. And then additional appropriations, if you get a contract established and maybe the appropriations that are determined, you have to later spend more than what is appropriated, then you'd have to do additional appropriations. As long as you have the cash to do it, you can do it, but you have to go through kind of a similar budget process to be able to add appropriations to any of your budgets that are established through the LGF. So with that being said, then that kind of concludes the budget information. And then the next board meeting, we would adopt the budget, which then would allow me to submit all of that information into the DLGF. As always, things to consider each year when it comes to expenses and revenues is just areas that help fill in gaps if we run into issues. Obviously we've used bonds before. That has really helped in some of our operational needs that have not been able to be covered through operational expenses. Because sometimes a roof project may be more than what we can spend in a year's time through our operational fund. There are other ways to garnish revenue besides just bonds. There are referendum. You can look at avoiding expenses through staffing or programming reductions, how we manage and use our grants, or what kind of grants are out there that might help support a need. Any type of reorganization that might need to be done within a building, like moving grade levels, or sharing services with other community entities.
Chris, under operations, the equipment listed there, that category covers the bus replacement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we will establish a capital project plan, which we kind of went over earlier on. And so that was all listed in that capital expense plan.
Because if that's not known, it looks like that's a very well-funded category for
Yes.
equipment.
Right. And typically, what we ask to spend gets reduced because our revenue is not going to meet the needs of what our expenses are. And so when we go to tailor our budget, then a lot of times some of those improvements and equipment expenses are the ones that kind of get pushed.
Yeah, the area that you cut back to
Yeah.
get in compliance.
Yeah. So I guess we keep it open for any comments
Yeah.
from the public.
Give a few minutes here on that. I would probably just point out, I believe the process is, once we close this tonight, you have till the 28th to make any concerns known to any of the board members that you may have seen tonight, because then on the 28th, when we do the adoption, we're actually going to vote up or down on this particular budget. So if there's something you didn't see or you want clarified, let us know. But at this point, then I'm going to close the budget hearing part of this meeting and move on. So next, then, I'll let you also speak to this, Dr. Kuhn. We have a recommendation to approve the resolution for appropriation modifications.
So the DLGF has a statutorial guideline to complete all, they call them 1782 notices, budget notices to all public entities by December 31st. So we could get that, once I submit it, we could get that at any time. And once we receive it, we only have 10 days to make any type of modifications to that if we need to. And so those don't always fall on a perfect time schedule to have budget or board meetings or any of that type of stuff. So we typically pass a resolution that would allow me to work with the budget rep who does our budget to make any additions or deletions in appropriations from this year's budget or the 2022 budget to make the 22 budget work for our needs. And so that's all that does is gives me the authority to do that with our budget when the time comes and if it's needed.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution for appropriation modification if needed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve the resolution for appropriation modification. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to personnel. Under employment, we have Tori Holloway, volunteer cheer coach at Southwood. Maggie Easterday, elementary volleyball coach at Sharp Creek Elementary. Cheryl Hodson, social worker, temporarily on a temp basis for Sharp Creek. Erica Speakman, paraprofessional at Southwood Elementary. Nicole Powell, paraprofessional at Metro North Elementary. And Elaine Ball, speech and language pathologist assistant for WMAP. Under coaches for Southwood for the 2021-22 season. Kenneth Norman, head girls basketball. Rod Cole, assistant girls basketball. Brittany Bush, JV girls basketball. Head basketball boys, we have John Burris, and assistant boys basketball, Christian Perry. JV boys basketball, Jim Hogan. Devin Dale for boys basketball C team. Mike Kennedy, boys basketball 8th grade. Carrie Hamill, head wrestling. Rena Markstaller, assistant wrestling, and Harley Heiner, assistant wrestling. And that is the slate.
I move to approve the HR report.
Second.
Motion and second to approve HR. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Heartland Career Center report.
I will have their meeting tomorrow.
Okay, so nothing tonight. All right. Superintendent's report, Mr. Kiefer.
I just want to mention again, and I know the elementary principals can speak to this also, but last Friday was our first e-learning day that we've had in over a year, because last year we took a little pause with that because of COVID. And so we were privileged to have Dr. Adam Drummond with all of our teachers. We had two different sessions. We had a session for the elementary teachers and then for the secondary teachers. Adam is with the International Center for Leadership of Education. And actually, that's the same group that we had Dr. Daggett a few years ago. And that's actually when we had an e-learning day. That would have been, I don't know if that was 2019 now or 2018, but it was in September and it was at Bachelor Creek. Yeah, so because we were doing renovations at both the junior and senior high school. So anyway, a lot of it is about best practices with instruction. I know principals are working with their teachers, and we'll continue to talk about it at our administrative meeting. But it is good to be able to take the day to have professional development and be able to learn more and be able to apply that so we can actually increase student learning. Also, we have other staff members, other student staff groups that work to be able to do some training and things like that. So just appreciate being able to do that and also have a well-known speaker to come in and talk to us and motivate us. Sometimes it's not always, what would I say, just an easy talk, because sometimes with Dr. Drummond, he basically said what he feels and what research says, and sometimes that's not necessarily what we always remember and what we think we should do. And so it's good to remind us of the things that are best practice and what is right and what we should be doing in the classroom. So that was very, very good. I don't know if any of the principals want to say anything or not, but that was good. So you guys want to say anything? It's a superintendent report, but now you're superintendent.
Yeah. It was good. Like, we talk a lot about relationships, at the district level and at the building level. And it's good to, kind of pat our staffs on the back for the job that, like, Dr. Drummond came in and reiterated those things. And, no matter what you're doing, relationships are always a big thing. And so, I think that I speak for all of us when, relationships are definitely a focus. And so good conversations coming out of what we did Friday. So.
And those relationships are, what you build with those relationships help you to be able to reach each child individually, because if you know them and you know how to help them and motivate them to do the best they can. That's all I have.
Oh, Tim isn't here, but.
No, he probably would say some more about that too, and but that's kind of why I wanted to say that.
All right, I didn't know if you had any other additional updates for him. Okay, we're gonna move on to new business. We have a recommendation to approve the PERF My Choice resolution.
Dr. King, you talk about that?
Yeah, so PERF is the Public Employees Retirement Fund that we offer to many of our 260-day and classified employees. So it's ran through the state. It's a pension. We already have PERF for them, but they have different options for the employee to select how they want their contributions, how they want them to be used, essentially. And so what this does is it gives them a way to manage out their years of service a little bit better. They don't have to do this. They can choose between the original way, which is the hybrid way, they call it PERF hybrid, and then this new way, which helps with their years of service and their pension. And so this is an offering that was brand new to teachers a few years ago, that was just kind of done, not through us, but through the state. And so we felt like to get that in line with what our offerings are for our certified staff as well. We've had a few questions of new employees that have come on if we offer this choice option through PERF. We did not. This would allow us to offer both the original hybrid and the My Choice selection, which they would select once they are hired. If they do not select one, then they automatically get enrolled into the original hybrid quantum. So it's really up to the employee. It does nothing or has no significance on our monies or anything that we do with PERF, which is an advantage for the employees in their pension.
And current employees already doing hybrid can change the
They
choice?
cannot.
Well, they cannot.
They cannot.
Okay.
This would only be effective, I believe we put November 1st on there, once it's approved.
Okay,
So it would be for any new employees would have that ability to select that option.
so they can't go back and change their existing.
And it probably wouldn't benefit them to do that anyway.
I didn't look at the numbers, so I
Yeah.
don't know if we're helping them or not, because I don't know those.
Yeah, so what really happens with PERF is you have to be, I think, 10 years to be established to get your pension. With the My Choice, after so many years, you can get a certain percentage of that.
Okay.
And so with a lot of transiency that happens nowadays, it's a benefit. If somebody's only going to be here for 5 years, they can still get some of that back.
Right.
So to do that, we had to have a resolution to submit to PERF for in-person, and make that addition to our PERF plan.
I'll move to the resolution.
Motion and second to approve the PERF My Choice resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to recommendation to approve the 2021-2022 fundraisers.
So, State Board of Accounts requires that fundraisers be approved through the school board. So we generate a list of fundraisers that we are planning on having for this calendar year and what they're being used for. So this gives you kind of an idea of what the schools are going back and asking for and why they're asking for it.
Only if you can send us a reminder so that when the Rising Hope Donuts.
I didn't see that on there.
There's two of them.
We're selling chocolate right now.
Can the club add to this for once we voted, it's locked in for the year? I can't remember the answer to that question.
There's flexibility with that. If there's something new or something that was, out of the ordinary, then we would have to get board approval for that. And some of these, they may not end up, just kind of depends. These are the ones that we typically have going.
I move to approve the school fundraisers.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the school fundraisers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Elementary school improvement plan.
Can we skip and do the fundraiser first and then just have them?
Oh, I thought it was gonna say.
The overnight, you mean?
Huh?
The overnight?
Yeah, can we do that and then
Okay.
save the best for last?
We'll skip and do number 4 here on the list, the addition to the agenda. Recommendation to approve the overnight field trip for Sharp Creek Elementary 4th grade to Camp Tecumseh on October 14th and 15th of this month.
I didn't realize you got it on this.
Yeah, we got it.
Thank you.
I motion to approve the overnight camp out.
I second that.
Motion and second to approve the overnight camp out for Sharp Creek's 4th graders. All in favor, say aye. Now we'll jump back to the
All right.
elementary school improvement plan.
Mr. Martin has even highlighted too on the camp, so.
I was just.
It's not
wanted to
a
change
law.
the date.
Why is that? Well, when was it supposed to be?
Huh? I used to always go in March.
It's gonna be raining
It's turned
anyway.
into a fall.
Like,
I'm
can't
ready.
really make that work.
Yeah. All right, well, appreciate the elementary principals being here tonight, and so they're going to share their school improvement plans for the next hour and a half. It'll probably be finished. So,
First,
You guys said
first
90
hour,
seconds.
hour, 10 minutes.
90 seconds.
so a lot of theirs is, the high schools are a little bit different, especially with White's and Northwood, Southwood, even though same configurations, but they did some straw votes and different things like that. But anyway, Mrs. Moore is going to be the spokesperson for all the elementary, and then after that, then if there's anything that Mr. Boone or Mr. Martin wants to add to that they can. So she has the first hour and a half or hour and 10 minutes. And then the rest.
I'm gonna say more like 90 seconds instead of 90 minutes, if that's okay. So our plans are all very similar. I think the biggest difference is the configuration of our buildings and then the data that we use. I know with Sharp Creek and with Southwood L, they will utilize mostly their iLearn data to look at student achievement as well as their NWA and Fonte Centennial reading benchmarks. And Metro North, our plan now focuses on utilizing that NWA data because that is the freshest data we have, even though our grade levels then feed in to the performance there of our 3rd graders at Sharp Creek. Our plans are very much ongoing and fluid and responsive to that student data. We also are including that focus on early learning experiences and have included that as part of our data set as well, so that we know and are hitting markers and can show that our preschoolers are learning and growing, because we know those experiences are going to impact them for the rest of their life. Our goals are simply focusing on academic achievement in reading, writing, math, and attendance, as well as continuing the growth of our educators through professional development.
I get it wrong.
Okay.
I would echo the fluid part, it's continually looking at what we're doing, adding what we can. And then at one time of the year, trying to document it, getting it in the document, making sure it's all there. Mr. Keyfaber mentioned professional development. That's an ongoing thing for many people, and some staff members delve out into the things that are relative to them. But we also have the benefit of corporation level support to do some big picture items and some topics that relate well to all buildings.
And I would just add to that, all of this within the context of, I heard teachers say on Friday as we were talking that, I am not teaching the same type of student that I was when I started. And just the huge uptick in the ACEs that we talked about with social emotional learning, adverse childhood experiences, and just, teaching to the whole person and focusing on those relationships as we're working on our reading, writing, math.
And as you can see on some of the data that we do share as far as the test scores and all kinds of different things, our schools are doing an excellent job. So we just want to keep letting you know about that, and also ask that you approve these plans you've had in front of you since Friday, and obviously then they will post those on our website and to the DOE. So,
Jeanette, can you see now that we're a couple, 3 years into this Little Nights, Little North thing, where we're trying to get maybe some of the more challenged early learners involved? Can you see the testing or whatever, or even the classroom environment step up because of that? I guess I'm just wondering about the positiveness of the whole.
I think, and all the women, you jump in.
Yep.
I think the first piece I would call the soft data that we see of just kids' level of comfort in a school setting. Just removing those barriers for all of our kiddos. Like, just them knowing how to navigate the school lunch line on the first day of school, comparing our, I'm sure you get to hear about it at, at first, it's exhausting. Just the growth that they make in the first week of school is huge. And it eliminates that as a barrier. And I'm always surprised, I shouldn't be, but I'm always surprised by the number of our students where that cafeteria is something that they anticipate all morning long, because it's hard. It's hard to ask our 5-year-olds to carry a tray and a milk and a napkin and don't forget your spoon and your ketchup and your mustard. And by helping them master that is a barrier that we eliminate for them. We are seeing lots of good data as our pre-Ks move into kindergarten and looking at our kindergarten readiness assessment. I think this will be the year our first group of Little Norths will take the iRead assessment in the spring. And that will be interesting data to see and mark how they've progressed. And I think it's definitely, we are going to see the return on that investment.
I think of a young man that was in Mrs. Drake's 4-year-old class last year, Sailor is his name, and it came to us, and meltdown every day. Frequent walks with Mrs. Law and myself, and does this child need developmental preschool? And of course, now we're pushing those kiddos into the classroom this year. Mrs. Drake was great about working with our special ed teacher and with our partners at Area Program, and just giving him different strategies and interventions and he is thriving. it's awesome to see, what we started with, and, it was a hard, first semester, for Sailor. But academically, he was been pretty solid, for his age, very appropriate all along. But just, picking up those typical peer behaviors, and to see something like that, I think just getting them in there early and getting those experiences has been paying for us.
So there's not so much of a gap if he were just launched into a kindergarten classroom.
Yeah.
Just ask for approval so they can go ahead and move forward with their plans.
I'll make the motion that we approve the elementary educational plans.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the elementary school improvement plan. All in favor, say aye. We have no unfinished business or board policy. Public comment on any item, not necessarily from tonight's agenda.
Dr. Kuhn, I didn't ask fast enough when Mr. Daisy asked for public comment on the budget. And I should know this number, but on the basic grant dollars, I noticed that it was 6,000, and then there was, after the comma, there was 55. And I'm just wondering what digit was missing.
Out of the zero, probably.
Okay, 6,055.
No, 6,550.
Okay.
But behind that was the online learning at a reduced rate of.
At 85% for virtual students.
Yep.
Okay. No other public comment being heard. Any items from board members? Okay, we're adjourned.